In this particular talk, I will discuss some of my learning while developing inductive power transfer system for basically low voltage battery, which is basically 24 volt or 48 volt systems. But before doing that, I will discuss some of the principles or some of the challenges and some of the standards which govern those systems and what are the building blocks of those systems which are there. Currently, if you see, if my research group has 4 PhD students, some are working in wide bandgap based motor drives, some are working in on basically wide bandgap based inductive power transfer systems. Anyway, this is the presentation outline, which basically I will start with overall system description for inductive power transfer. Then I will discuss some of the operating principles. Some of like what is the need of building blocks. One of the building blocks is compensation network or tuning network. Then coil structure, which is another building block of inductive power transfer system. Then some of the standards governing this power transfer system. And then the case study where I will tell the 3-stage architecture which we went ahead, how we distributed the overall gain between the input to output what we needed, and some of the coil parameters which we got, some of the experimental results or testing results what we got. So if we see like in case of EVs, if we see, I'm sure everyone might be knowing about, in India we have CCS2 chargers which are coming in a big way for cars basically. There some are like commercially available CCS2 charger which is having a power rating of 30 kilowatt has a standard 5-meter cable and it has a connector at the end. Now that if we see overall, I mean if we roughly calculate, the weight of that is somewhere around 3.6 kg and it can able to withstand nearly 200 amperes of current, maximum 200 ampere of current. This is the case with our cars which is having nearly 25 to 30 kilowatt hour battery pack. If we assume commercial vehicles which may go slightly or which may go very much higher battery bank capacity, there we need obviously thicker conductors and obviously heavier conductors, and also there are some people are talking about liquid cooled cables. Now again, those if you are using liquid cooled cables, it requires frequent maintenance and also it becomes heavier. Further, when you when you do plug in plug out, a lot of wear and tear happens into the conductor, and also because of the high temperature, because it goes to different thermal cycles, and again it should be weather resistant and vandalism free. So this is what I am talking about, this particular conductor. Further, a human has to go put that particular cord into the system to which he or she wanted to charge the charge. So here comes the motivation for contactless charging, especially for EVs. Some of the advantages are convenience. You don't have to, a human don't have to carry the heavy conductor and plug it into the charger. They just bring the car or whatever vehicle they are driving, take it, park it, and that's it. It is charging. Less wear and tear. I mean, there is no conductor, so there is no wear and tear of the connector or the cord. Then fully autonomous system. I mean, if suppose you forget to plug in your charger, plug in your vehicle, you don't have to bother about those kind of things. Then again, no human intervention. It is required, so more safety. Further, it has inherent isolation, so automatically that again enhances its safety, and it is weather resistant, vandalism proof. Like no one I mean have the cord, cannot take out those cords and those things. So this is the motivation for contactless fast charging for EVs. Now there are other applications where contactless charger can play a good amount of role. Smart charging solution, your mobiles, and now in mobiles also started coming into picture. UAV and drones charging, so where you don't want any human intervention, so there you can charge your UAV and drones into the system. Then underwater robots, automated guided vehicles. for industrial automation. You can put dynamic wireless power transfer and make sure your industry line or automated line does not stop for charging of those automated guided vehicles. Then again, industrial vehicles like cranes or the vehicle which actually goes to the larger distances and do the repair work. Then biomedical devices, there are a lot of wireless or contactless charging comes in biomedical devices. Now one way to achieve this contactless charging is through inductive power transfer via magnetic field. Now that particular system involves some challenges. First is energy transfer loss. It is understandable, it is via air, so definitely there is no conductor involved, so definitely there will be energy loss. Safety concern due to exposure of time varying electromagnetic field, because some of the field get linked to the receiver, but others, there are some part of the field which gets leaked out, so that is also one of the safety concern one need to take care. Then as we increase the transmission distance, the efficiency goes down because the amount of power which is been transferred reduces, and also with misalignments where not entire field gets linked to the receiver side. Then wireless communication is needed because you have the power source on the transmitter side and you are actually controlling the receiver side voltages or output voltages, output voltage or current. Then again it has a complicated control because of this wireless communication involved into picture. And then final point, which is electromagnetic coupler design, because how to size that coupler, what number of turns to be taken, what is the size of wire to be taken, all those concerns are there, which are challenges when one go ahead and building this inductive power transfer system. So if we see the overall block diagram of inductive power transfer system, generally it is having the PFC stage, which is power factor correction converter, to achieve the unity power factor current drawn from the source, AC source. Then you have DC to AC converter, which converts the DC to high frequency AC. Generally as per SAE 2954 standard, they say the system has to be operated between 80 to 90 kilohertz to avoid interference with the infotainment system. Then after that you have a compensation network, which is there to compensate that leakage inductances what we have. Then you have the wireless coupler or inductive power transfer coupler. You have a transmitter coil, you have a receiver coil, then compensation network on the receiver side, followed by AC to DC converter, which can be a simple diode bridge rectifier or active rectifier, if whatever you want. Again, this is for 400 volt battery system. If you want to go for further let's say low voltage battery system, you need further stages, or you can also control control your DC to AC inverter in such a manner that you will get that reduction in that particular voltages accordingly, or get that particular ratio accordingly. So it basically primarily works on based on two laws, Ampere's law and Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction. If we consider, it is basically a loosely coupled transformer. It can be easily considered as a loosely coupled transformer or transformer with a large air gap. So if we see, if we write down simple Ampere's law and over this particular loop area and try to find out how much amount of voltage gets induced on the other side, what we get is relation where you have omega mu naught n1 n2 a0 by 2h0. Now this h is the one which actually decides how much amount of voltage induced on the secondary side. If you have larger air gap, amount of voltage induced is less, that's when your amount of power which can be transferred is getting affected. So this is the presence of this large air gap makes it difficult to transfer the amount of power which we have. So let us discuss from the circuit perspective. Let us define a simple transformer or T model of that IPT system. We have the source which is basically AC source coming out, which is at the output of inverter, followed by we have this coil where we have this mutual inductance term, you have this leakage inductance term, L1 is the self inductance, M is the mutual inductance, you have these resistances of both the coils, then on the secondary side same thing repeats, and then you have the output resistance or output load, which is basically this is the fundamental Harman approximated equivalent resistance. Now if you do a simple mathematics or simple KVL, if you put, what you will get is GV is nothing but this big formula, which is actually, if you have a smaller value of R equivalent, that actually means you have just M by L1. This implies that the output voltage drop rapidly for small resistances, or when the load resistance is small as compared to reactance. So thus power delivery is impossible. I mean the power delivery to the load is impossible. Now let's see how you can compensate that kind of system. So for that we can just use a simple series capacitance on the primary side, simple series capacitance on the secondary side. We write down the Z of, or the impedance of this leakage, I mean this branch, and if we can make sure somehow if these two terms is equal, then we can obtain this V inverter input is actually can able to transfer the maximum amount of power transfer. I mean maximum amount of voltage can be transferred, or maximum amount of power can be transferred to the voltage. But here if you try to compensate with the leakage inductance, it is difficult because the two systems has to, I mean you don't know what the alignment between the transmitter side and receiver side. So this particular case itself is not possible. What you want, whatever the voltage which you are having, entire thing should come at the output, but that can only be obtained when you compensate this leakage inductance term. But you cannot compensate this leakage inductance term because in actual system you don't know what is your leakage inductance. So how can you decide what will be the C value, what will be, I mean on the primary side, on the secondary side? Maybe for one value you can define fully aligned system, you can define, but for different misalignment system you cannot predict how basically how the vehicle is come and parks over the transmitter coupler. So that's the reason why we need to define basically we need to use the compensation network on the primary side and the secondary side. But again this primary, I mean if you see the reason why we need compensation on the primary side, basically it helps in improving the power factor of the current drawn from the inverter side. That means the inductive part we are trying to compensate, the entire inductive part. So only the reactive or only the resistive part or only the active part is getting is coming into the coil part. Then it improves efficiency as we have the lower reactive power within the system, and it actually reduces the volt ampere rating of the transmitter coil. While on the secondary side, the compensation network actually improves the power transfer capability. Basically the amount of power which is available, which can be actually coming on the receiver coupler, can be fully transferred to the load can be transferred to the load with the term Q, which is basically quality factor of the secondary side. So if we use this particular compensation of secondary side, we can able to transfer the power, more power to the load. While if we have the uncompensated system, we can only do maximum power transfer to the load, which is half of VOC into ISC, which is basically when you have the reactance is equal to magnitude of reactance is equal to magnitude of resistance. Hence we need compensation on both sides. We can use single order compensation system, which is basically series and parallel, or higher order compensation system where you have multiple compensating network components in which are working together, and the compensation network actually determines the voltage gain, efficiency, input impedance of the IPT system. So some of the commonly used system, commonly used compensation network are series parallel, LCC series, LCC parallel, or LCC and LCC. Since we are driving the compensation network and the other stages using voltage source, so we cannot use a parallel at the input side, we have to use the series compensation. Parallel compensation means parallel capacitance we cannot use on the primary side. So when we do this simple mathematics and try to plot the normalized gain with load resistance and the coupling factor, what we see is that as my load resistance increases, that means as I am going to a slight load condition, my gain goes getting increases, which is difficult for the devices which are being used on the DC AC to DC converter on the secondary side. Similarly, if we see the conduction loss, as we are going towards light load condition, my conduction loss increases, simply because assume you don't have any load here. So now you have this block, thus this primary side you have. Now if you compensate this capacitance with the entire self inductance, now what you have is basically a zero impedance or basically short circuit situation, and that's when your conduction loss is increases. Here basically we are compensating the entire self inductances with this capacitance on the primary and the secondary side. So this is one of the drawback with series compensation. Let's say suddenly your vehicle gets removed, the series compensation sees there is no impedance on the primary side, that's when huge amount of current can go into the primary coil side, and that's why the conduction loss goes up. Then we talk about series to parallel compensation. Again here, although the conduction loss is okay, because as we go to a light load condition, our conduction loss reduces, it is okay because it is in line with the efficiency situation. But if we see one important thing, as we go into the light load condition, my gain of the system increases. That is also one of the problematic point, because the voltages on the secondary side becomes huge for the devices. Then comes the LCC parallel thing. In LCC parallel, what you see is that your conduction loss remains same throughout the load resistance, primarily because you have the constant coil current on the primary side, maybe, and nearly constant coil current on the secondary side. Then comes LCC. Again LCC, what we see is that with load, as load resistance reduces, that means light load condition, my conduction loss increases, because my this coil current and this coil currents are remain same in LCC network. If we see the LCC series system, what one thing you will see is that with load there is no change in the voltage gain. So it is having a characteristic of load independent voltage gain characteristic. And in this particular system, we will see in this particular system the primary coil currents are constant, but secondary coil currents are load dependent. That's the reason why in light load condition we have some fixed amount of conduction loss, but it is smaller than LCC or LCC parallel system. So this is all about the compensation network. Now let us see the another important part of IPT system, which is IPT coupler structure. In IPT coupler structure, there are many IPT coupler structure. Now simple coupler structure is a circular or rectangular coil, or DD coils, I mean 2Ds, like this kind of system, or I mean other higher level things are DDQ and bipolar things. So now if you see here in circular or rectangular pad system, what you have is that your flux lines are going from transmitter side to the receiver side in the vertical direction, and you have a leakage flux on the sides. So that means we have, so this is the leakage flux which is coming over here, here also some leakage flux will be coming here. So we have to actually provide the shielding on the Z direction, if suppose this is a Z direction, and also to X direction and Y direction. Y is basically inside into the board. Now if you see the other part of this, which is a DD coil, we have the current flowing into this in this particular direction, as a result of which what happens is that we will see that the flux line will be something like this. So here the direction of flux which is getting linked is in the vertical direction, but here the flux which is getting linked will be on the horizontal direction. So it is useful in case of when we have the horizontal misalignment condition. It is useful because you have good amount of distance where good amount of flux are there. So Again, but the problem with DD coil is, you need good amount of copper. You need to put two coils on the other side. Again, there are structures where people uses DD coil on the transmitter side and circular coil or the simple coil on the receiver side, so that the burden or the stress on the vehicle, onboard vehicle, can be reduced. So in total, what we see is that there are two types of leakage flux we can have. If we consider only the circular coil, I mean circular or rectangular pad, simpler things we consider. So we have flux which is going in the top, and we have flux which is going on this direction. So we have Z direction flux, which actually couples with vehicle chassis, causes heating on the vehicle chassis, and the flux which is going on this direction actually will, the user can get exposed to those kind of flux. So that has to be kept within the safety guidelines. So according to ICNI RP guidelines, which is one of the international standard body, they say that the exposure limit of magnetic field should be within 27 micro Tesla for operating frequency of 3 to 100 kilohertz. Suppose if your high frequency magnetic field is it should be within 3 to 100 kilohertz. So our primary objective of basically guiding and shaping the magnetic field is to basically shield the Z direction flux. I am talking about only the circular and rectangular pads. So shielding of Z direction flux and attenuation of the leakage flux on the X direction and Y direction, keeping the value of self inductance and coupling to be as maximum as possible. Because if you see, if you start reducing this leakage, if you start attenuating this leakage flux, you are actually the flux which is getting coupled between the primary side and secondary side will also get reduced. So that's when you are actually the mutual coupling gets reduced. So now let us see how we can make sure that kind of situation can be achieved. So here what we did was a simple thing. What we did was we designed the identical coils, and we start increasing the ferrite. We start putting the ferrite at the back, and we start increasing the ferrite plate thickness. So what we see is that when there was very minimal value of ferrite thickness, we have a smaller coupling coefficient, and whenever the ferrite, we have significant amount of ferrite, we can able to increase the coupling coefficient. Why? Because our flux line get guided or gets more and more flux comes within the coil structure, and at the same time we saw our self inductance variation. Our self inductance also goes higher. That is one of the requirement, because that can help in reducing the coil currents. Then okay, we can able to shape the coil structure, but still there are fluxes which are actually getting leaked out. So to eliminate that, again, these are some of the field patterns which I am showing without the ferrite plate and with ferrite plate. So you can see this region is getting more and more flux. Here you can see less flux getting linked to the secondary side. Here more flux is getting linked, because this is the larger value of flux density, magnetic flux density. So now we can able to guide the flux lines, we can able to improve the self inductance and coupling of the coil, but here still we have the Z direction flux lines which are getting leaked out. So to shield those things, we will place the conductive sheet. Basically we'll put a aluminum sheet there, because of the high frequency field lines, eddy currents get induced, and those eddy currents actually cuts down the magnetic field which are getting leaked into the Z direction. But when that thing is happening, what we see is that our actual coupling factor and inductance of the coil goes down. And again, this is here the distance between the aluminum and ferrite plate. So we have a coil, then we put the aluminum sheet, and then we'll put the ferrite sheet. So as we increase our distance between them, what we see is that our coupling factor increases and our inductance also increases. So there comes a thing where we can use the combination of ferrite and aluminum. We we can maintain a sufficient amount of distance, as a result of which we can able to obtain sufficient amount of coupling factor and the inductance of the coil. At the same time, we can get the required amount of attenuation. So we did a very simple thing. What we did was we first keep, maybe we did not keep anything, like there is no ferrite and aluminum back plate. As a result of which, what we see is our actually the magnetic field intensity get attenuated with this rate, and that rate we got as 57.1 dB per decade. When we put the ferrite, what we get 74.86, and then when we put ferrite with aluminum, we got 82.6. So that means when we keep the combination of aluminum sheet and the ferrite, we can able to get the required attenuation. So that's the reason why our IPT coupler will have the ferrite plate, and then behind that there will be an aluminum sheet. And overall flux distribution, if you see, the majority of the flux is confined within the structure. Outside we see the flux, if you see the magnetic flux density, it is, this red zone is 25 microtesla, which is within the IC NIRP rating. Again, till here, up to this one is somewhere around 50 mm distance, there is good amount of exposure, but that is acceptable. Somewhere down the line we have to compromise on that. Now we can able to know what is the actual structure of IPT coil. We have a coil, we have an aluminum sheet, we have the ferrite sheet, we have the aluminum sheet. But there are several parameters we still don't know, like what should be the shape of ferrite we can take, what should be the number of turns we can take, what should be the size of coil wire we can take, what can be the range of coupling factor you can accommodate, or you can manage with. So all those things are the unknown factor. Now there are different approaches which are there. First is design flowcharts, where what they do, they take down 2-3 parameters and they optimize that 2-3 parameters. Other parameters are parameters. So you take all the parameters, you sweep around, you run thousands and thousands of simulation, and that's when you can get the best possible coil structure. But again, it takes good amount of time and resources. And then finally, some of the evolving algorithms, like genetic algorithms and particle swarm optimization, already those things are available in the literatures. So we thought, let us also come up with some of the systematic way of doing coil design approach. So what we did was, we kept our main objective to minimize the conduction loss. Why? Because in our system we saw that the magnetic flux density is somewhere around 1.6 millitesla, which is very far less than the limit of ferrite plate. So magnetic loss can be first stage design can be neglected, and this is one of the important factor, conduction loss. We took this into consideration, and then we come up with the coil algorithm approach, which can be applicable to LCC series or series composition. So for that, what we did is, we we started writing KVL of those LCC series. This is, I am showing the fundamental harmony approximated circuit of LCC series compensation, and we started writing down KVL, which give us this particular relationship. We define the power loss in the primary coil as I1 square into R, where R is the resistances of the coil, which is actually obtained in this form. Then we write down similarly for secondary side power loss, and then we define the loss factor, which is nothing but the ratio of the power losses which happens in the primary and secondary coil divided by the total output power which we are getting. Finally, when we work out those things, we got a relationship which is looking something like this, where we have the Zn, which is normalized impedance from coil to load, given as omega L by R equivalent, and the quality factor of the coil, which is omega L by R. Now our main idea is to minimize that loss factor, because we have taken only the conduction loss into consideration. So when we minimize those loss factor, when we did the differentiation with respect to Zn, what we get is, we get optimal value of Zn is 1 by coupling factor. When we keep this Zn value, what we get optimum value or the best possible scenario to obtain the minimum conduction loss is K equal to R equivalent by omega L. And that's when we operate with this kind, when we get the coil with this having this relation satisfied, and when we keep this thing over in this particular formula, we define the value of loss factor, we can obtain what can be the minimum value of quality factor, and we want quality factor of the coil to be greater than that, because that's when your resistance of the coil is minimum. And when we do that, we can, I mean, that's the point where we can get the coil with the minimum conduction loss. So we define further, we take this thing over here and we define the figure of merit, and we want this figure of merit to be as minimum as possible. So with this we defined the coin design algorithm. So where what we did was, we first started off with defining the outer diameter, because that is defined by the mechanical constraints of your vehicle. Once we define the outer diameter of the coil, and before that we choose what can be the coil structure, because at some point we have to start. So we took, okay, let us go with the simple coil structure, let's say circular coil or rectangular pad, and then define the outer coil structure, and then define the kind of ferrite we need, because that's simpler. First we started with the simpler thing, so where shape, mechanical constraint, that means size, and the type, what kind of field shielding you want, that you can decide. Then what we did was, we first select what can be the diameter of the coil, we don't know. So we first select, we randomly sweep those, not randomly, we sweep those coil diameter. Now we first keep one value of diameter. What we did, we don't put the entire coil. What we did, we just took the cylindrical plate kind of structure, which is similar to that of coil, and with the same height as that of S dia, because when you start keeping the coils, that much height will be consumed by the coil itself. And we did, we start sweeping around, like we sweep the R in, or the internal radii of the coil, and we then stop at a place where the coupling factor starts getting like saturated. Like for example, if we see here, we vary, I mean on the x axis you can see R in versus R out ratio and coupling factor. So you can see nearly somewhere around 0.5 ratio. After that the coupling starts getting saturated. Beyond that there is no increase in the coupling. So this can be the best possible point you can have. There is no need of going into deeper, because you will need more length of the coil wire, and it will further add to the resistance of the coil. And that's when we can fix our outer diameter, our inner diameter. Now we have fixed our outer diameter and inner diameter, and we know our dia of the wire. We can calculate number of turns which can be fitted into this. And then we compute FEA, I mean final, we make the structure, we compute the FEA, we put the coupling factor and self inductance, we calculate this figure of merit. If this figure of merit is below this our tolerance value, we take it, otherwise we again go back defining the different aspect. If suppose this thing is within this thing, we go back, we compute the minimum value of quality factor, and from there we compute the R value or the resistance value, or resistance of the coil, we can, from there we can compute. And then we can define our LCC series tank parameters. Now that is the coil with the, or the coupling we can get with the fully aligned system. Now how much amount of misalignment I can tolerate? So for that we again start looking into the secondary coil currents, because primary coil currents are constant in case of LC series. So secondary coil winding current, and then we calculate the losses of the secondary coil winding current, and then if it is within the tolerance of our limit, then it is fine. Otherwise we go back again, decrement the K value, because with misalignment your coupling factor decrements, and that includes some of the simulation, more and more like you have to vary the transmitter coil, and you have to see, or you have to misalign, I mean you have to make this system misalignment, you have to make the misalignment, and then you have to keep looking into this kind of these particular losses, and then finally at last you come to know, okay, this is the moment this condition fails, you come to know this is the minimum coupling factor I can go. That means this is the boundary by which I can accommodate my misalignments. So with this, and if this misalignment is within the specification of our requirement as per the SAE, we can complete the design. If not, then we can again go back and repeat the same procedure. So with this, we can come to know that R in by R out is somewhere around 0.5 or near 0.5 or near 4.5, and then we again calculate for different value of wire diameter, we calculate the figure of merit, and which for different power level, for different output power level, because output power level will define your R equivalent value. So that's when you can choose, suppose you have the 1000 watt of power, so this is the wire diameter you can obtain. Now once you obtain the diameter of the wire, you can choose from the range, from the Litz wire, because here we have a high frequency excitation, so we have to use Litz wire so that our AC losses are minimal. So you can choose the Litz wire which can accommodate within this thing and which have the reasonably less skin effect for 85 kilohertz, and you can select accordingly the wire diameter, and from there you can calculate the Litz wire calculation. You can select the Litz wire calculation. So that is how you can design one of the ways of designing the IPT coupler. There are many ways. You can see here we did not take the ferrite reduction in ferrite into consideration. We did not take the different coil structures. So there are different ways. This is one of the ways which we can able to obtain the coil structure, and we build around that coil structure. So now let us talk about some. So we discussed some of the like building blocks of IPT system. Now let's come and see what are the standards which are governing inductive power transfer system. So primary standard is SAE J2954. This actually defines your misalignment requirement, your distance requirement, your power level requirement, or define the different classes of inductive power transfer system. Then next standard is IC/NI/RP, to basically to tell you what is the exposure to time varying magnetic field you can have. Then again one can also see IEEE C951234 for understanding the exposure of radio frequency electromagnetic field. You can see like whether your system can be, if let's say if your system is ISO 19363 compliant, then you should follow this safety, like amount of leakage flux you can, leakage field you can have, or interportability. Suppose you have circular coil and your receiver will be having a rectangular coil. At that place, they will define what kind of interportability you can obtain or you can achieve. So that is something which is defined in this standard. And then you have ISO 15118. Suppose you are doing vehicle to grid communication, so that a vehicle to grid power transfer, bidirectional power transfer, you can look into the communication, what is needed to be done when these things are there. Now let us see one of the primary standards, SAE J2954. It defines the frequency range. First thing is it defines the frequency range, which is between 80 to 90 kilohertz, because it will not interfere with your infotainment system. 81 to 90 kilohertz. Then it defines the inductive power transfer system, or they say as wireless power transfer system, into different classes, power classes. So first is within 3.7 kVA, WPT2 is 7.7 up to 7.7 kVA, WPT3 11.11 kVA, and then finally it goes up to 22 kVA. Beyond that there is no standards as of now. Still they are working on it. Again they define the minimum target efficiency of the system, minimum target efficiency at the offset system they have defined. Again frequency 81.38 to 90 kilohertz they have defined specifically, and they define the contactless power with the transmission distance. So Z1 class is 100 to 150 transmission distance, Z2 140 to 210 transmission distance, Z3 170 to 250 transmission distance. And then they also define what can be the misalignment you can, one can expect, or one should able to accommodate. So they define x direction, y direction up to plus minus 75 y direction plus minus 100 and delta z which is for this particular class between this to this point. And then angular, so there can be possibility that you will have angular misalignments. So how much angular misalignment it can obtain. So these are the some of the primary things which they define in SAE J2954 standard. Again, this standard is there only up to 22 kilowatt or 22 kVA. Beyond that, still things there are recommended practices, but still now there are no standards as such. So the actual application starts, for in case of EVs actually starts beyond for the for larger high power applications where still the standards are not there. That means we still have the flexibility to look around different possibilities and to look what could be the best possible scenarios. Now I will discuss based on the things what I have discussed, the theory part. Based on that, what we designed. So we have designed for the low voltage wireless charging system, basically for 24 volt system, where you can have basically two possibilities. Either you can get the entire step down from 400 volt to 48 volt or 24 volt, or you can have one more DC-DC converter at the output and get the required voltage value. Again, there are challenges in both the systems because here you have multiple stages conversion. Here the problem is you have to control the battery output voltage, so you need wireless communication. Here you can avoid having the wireless communication because that is again it add up the complexity in your system. Then you will have frequency control, so you will have non-resonant frequency operation. You can go for, if you go for phase shift system, you can lose zero voltage switching. But here what you can do is you can keep this system, your wireless system or wireless stage undisturbed, while you can play around with the DC-DC converter stage and obtain the required things. So we go ahead with the 3-stage system where we have the PSC stage. We took totem pole PSC converter at the input side, at the front end side. Then we took the wireless DC stage where we have full bridge converter, followed by LCC compensation network on the primary side, series compensation on the secondary side, because we want to keep as minimum component on the vehicle or on the board, on board the vehicle. So from this side we have the system on the vehicle. Here we have diode bridge rectifiers, so we don't have to bother about gate drivers. Again, for buck converter we need gate drivers and we need to do appropriate design to obtain the required DC-DC buck converter stage. So there we first select the appropriate compensation network. We took the compensation network based on the gain and conduction loss. We don't want any wireless communication between the secondary side and the primary side to avoid putting additional burden on the control. So what we decided, let us go ahead with the LC series because it's a load dependent gain characteristics. So we can design, we can make our wireless DC stage operate at a fixed resonant frequency and get the required gain, and then our DC-DC stage can take care of required voltage conversion. So there comes the challenge of how you can decide, how you can distribute the gain between the DC-DC stage and the wireless stage. And then we use that coil design algorithm what I was discussing previously to obtain different number of turns, thickness of wire, inductance of coil, compensating network, and calculate the compensating network parameters. So here if you see the LCC series compensation, so some of the advantages what you have with LCC series compensation is your gain is only dependent on the coupling, it is not dependent on the load, the voltage gain. So that's when it gives us the flexibility to keep the wireless stage working at just one single frequency and then work around with DC-DC converter to obtain the maximum, to obtain the gain requirement. And one more advantage with LCC series compensation is your primary coil current is kept constant. Why? Because if you do the KVL, simple KVL of these 3 loops, you can able to understand the I1 current is independent of load. So if let's say suddenly your vehicle or your load is removed, you can still able to, you can system is still able to survive because the this coil current is remain constant. So in that way your currents are not going beyond the desired limit or safety limits. And then since there is load independent gain characteristic, we can have the independent control on the primary side and on the secondary side. So we can use the two microcontroller or 2 real-time microcontroller. We can put the different softwares around them and you can make them work independently. So regarding gain, I mean again the problem lies how you can define the gain of the wireless stage and how you can define like what should be the voltage of the intermediate, this link, what can be the voltage of this particular link. So for that what we did was, we know our output voltage, we know our input voltage, which is basically the output of PFC converter 400 volt. So we have to now distribute our gain among the DC-DC stage and the wireless DC-DC stage. So what we did, we wrote down the buck converter losses, primary buck converter losses, because here we are using synchronous rectification. We use the conduction loss in the top switch, conduction loss in the bottom switch, switching loss in the top switch, and conduction losses in the DC buck converter. Here we can be able to obtain the soft switching of the bottom switch, so we have eliminated the switching loss of top switch, and then we did the we differentiate it with respect to D to get the optimum value of D, where we can have better good amount of efficiency we can obtain. And that's when we do this for particular, when we recompute this, we get the optimum value of this, which is for particular power level, it depends upon the V output, and that's when using this curve we can able to decide what can be, I mean for this particular voltage level what can be our duty ratio, and that's when we can define the voltage of the input side of the buck converter, because output voltage is fixed, which is a 24 volt. So once we define the gain of the buck converter, we can easily able to understand, okay, what can be the output of wireless DCC stage, and we know input of wireless DCC stage is constant. So with that we can able to define what can be the optimum value of gain. Again, comparing just the buck converter losses, what can be the optimum value of gain we need to have. From that optimum value of gain, we can again parameterize using the same algorithm or using the same coil algorithm to obtain the different coil parameters. So finally, when we do all the exercises using that coil design parameters, we obtain these values, and we can able to identify our coupling factor range, which goes from 0.274 to 0.149, with which we can able to do the misalignment up to minus 80 mm to plus 80 mm, which is within the SAE misalignment class. And we can choose this Litz wire of 1040 by 42 ferrite dimensions, aluminum dimensions we can able to understand, and we can basically do the transmission of we can obtain the transmission distance of 100 mm. So this is how we fabricated the coil. We start with designing the structure where we can place placeholder where we can keep the coil. From there, using we use the PC95 material, ferrite material, because its permeability is fairly constant up to 100 kilohertz. So we use that. Then we place the ferrites over the box using, I mean, you can either use, you can either create the channels, or here in case of lab, we use double-sided tape. Then we place the overall ferrite over this, within this placeholder, and then we start winding the coil, put that coil over this ferrite, and then put the acrylic sheet over that, tie it down from either side using the nylon nuts. Avoid using metallic nuts because the field lines can link with that. So we use the non-metallic nuts. We put the aluminum sheet there, and then we put it on the coil basically structure, where we can do the misalignment studies like lateral misalignment or angular misalignment. So after doing this, our system, and then we designed the PCBs. This is basically PFC and primary inverter circuit board. This is the primary LCC compensation system. This is basically the coil structure. Then we have a secondary compensation, which is just the series with just the capacitor bank at place. Then at the output we have the rectifier and the buck converter. Here we use C0G capacitance to have better, I mean, to maintain the same amount of, or nearly, it has basically better tolerances against temperatures. So that's why we kept this, and we keep series parallel combination because still on the secondary side we have good amount of current which these capacitors cannot take. So we need to make sure that we have proper value of parallel and series compensation, series capacitors, and we use basically, it is basically all SiC based converter. We use SiC based MOSFET on the totem pole PFC, on the primary side of or primary side inverter. Then on the secondary side buck converter also we use the SiC devices, and diode also we use the basically SiC based diodes. So it is all SiC based design, and then we run it. So we got first stage is basically PFC stage. We got the unity power factor with good amount of very good zero crossing distortion impact, because totem pole PFC has this problem of zero crossing distortion. We saw the temperature profiling, which is well within the our requirement. It is well within the requirement. Then these are some of the results we obtained at the maximum load. I mean, at the maximum power, we obtained 98.7% efficiency. And then again we obtain TSG as we go along. Our TSG is getting lower and lower, and power factor is reaching up to unity. Again, for low powers, we can able to achieve only 0.93 power factor. Then comes the second stage, which is wireless DCC stage. In wireless DCC stage, these are some of the waveforms at 240 watt, at this is at 900 watt. So if you see carefully, the primary coil current is maintained constant, while the secondary coil current gets reduced with the load, or it is a load dependent coil current. While these are the this switch voltages and this diode voltages here. Again, this is the V switch voltage and I inverter current. So if you see here, when the top switch is or when the bottom switch is getting off, we are getting a negative current. That's when we can able to obtain the ZVS characteristics. Again, we actually did all the temperature profiling. It is well within the temperature ranges. We saw the secondary compensation capacitor bank. We saw the primary compensation and the aluminum shield and coil temperatures. Then we actually plotted the efficiency curve. We obtained the maximum efficiency of 96.907 at the peak load, because we have optimized it for the peak load condition. Okay, fast. And these are some of the temperature profiles. So we got on the secondary side, this is for the buck stage, we got slightly higher temperatures on the switches being the better, I mean it has to do the good amount of voltage conversion. These are the some of the temperature profile. We got the efficiency plot, which is since the conduction loss is the primary losses, so we have the with the load our efficiency loss efficiency goes down. And this is the final the key means experimentation. These are the input current, voltage, and then these are the output voltage, output current at the maximum 900 watts. These are the primary coil current, secondary coil current, and inverter this thing. These are the efficiency plots for different alignment misalignments and different I mean at different voltages we have done. So we achieved the peak to peak efficiency of 90.2 from the input AC to the DC output DC, and we get 85% efficiency at the worst misalignment case due to increased secondary winding losses. So these are some of the things we discussed today. We discussed about various aspects of inductive power transfer system, different standards, different principles, different coil structures, different compensation networks, how it defines the operating principles. And going ahead, there are we can include in this coil algorithm, we can include ferrite reduction and ferrite loss reduction into the algorithm. Here we just decide the gain distribution with just the buck converter. We can define the global minima point for gain distribution. That is the next level of studies which we are performing, and then we can define the unified coil design algorithm applicable to any kind of IPT coil structure, which is difficult, but we have to, I mean we can if we work out, we can find out. And then again for high power contactless charging system, we can go for multi-phase IPT system, where we can have 3-phase system, and we can obtain the high power system, and then ferrite-less coupler design. So these are some of the things I wanted to discuss. I would like to take some of the questions if you have. I would be happy to answer them.
Sir, I had a question regarding field distribution profile, like what all tools are available, and what is their accuracy with respect to practical aspect?
See, you can use basically I primarily use FEA simulation from NC's Maxwell, basically doing the eddy current, using the eddy current solver. So you can use, and that is fairly well equipped this thing, because we got when we got the coil inductance and coupling factor, we got somewhere around 0.3, but in actual system we got 0.27. And the coil we obtain in the simulation 255 microhenry at fully aligned condition, whereas when we designed this thing and calculated using LCR meter, we obtained 250 microhenry. So it is fairly well equipped software, and it is basically a very it is not so complicated simulation, so you can able to do it and with fairly good amount of accuracy.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I have question related with the transceiver coil and receiving coil. So if I am transferring power and misalignment happens, so the losses only across the primary coil, or the losses also across the secondary coils?
No, it depends upon your compensation network, because for example, if we take LCC series, the primary coil current is constant. So that is constant, and it is depending only on your this inductance, only this inductance and voltage you are applying. So in that case you can say, in case of LC series it is okay, but when you are considering, for example, I have shown. See, for example, LCC series, we consider a series. My coupling is varying, that means my misalignment is happening. The maximum coupling I achieve when we have a full aligned condition, and when we go below, we have the misalignment condition. So for one particular value of resistance, if we see as our coupling reduces, my conduction loss increases in case of series. Now when I see the series parallel, as our coupling increases, my conduction loss reduces. If we see LCC parallel, you will see that as my coupling increases, my conduction loss also increases. So it depends upon compensation network to compensation network.
So we always prefer LCC as
No, in the application which I was working, I don't want any communication between the secondary side and the primary side, any wireless communication between the secondary side primary side. So I have to go for LC series because it provides the load independent gain characteristic. And so whatever I am getting, whatever the load may be for me, like, because when you are charging your battery, your load keep on varying. So my LC series compensation will give the same voltage ratio. It will not change the gain. What will be that DC-DC converter is the one which will be controlling the output voltage or output current, whatever you will.
And sir, if transceiver coil is rectangular structure and the receiver coil is different structure, then how we
Yes.
is transferring?
Yes, so that is something is defined in that comes under interportability, because let's say basically your system, your transmitter is, let's say, circular, and you have the rectangular thing. So there you have to see whether it can be done or not. First you have to do the FEA simulation to understand whether this is possible or not. If it is not possible and if it is the requirement, or if you have to fulfill the SAE requirement, then you have to change your design to accommodate that kind of interportability. What's my point? It is not a straightforward answer to give,
Yes.
but if you have to do the analysis to basically accommodate that kind of interportability. You have to see that.
Because if customer comes to charge their car, we don't
know.
Yes.
So that's why the standard SAE 2954 defines some of the interportability. Like for example, they define, okay, with DD transmitter you can have the circular coil or you can have the rectangular coil, but with DD but with the circular you cannot have DD receiver. So that kind of thing they have defined in that what coil structures can be interportable.
So if you have more questions,
Yeah.
just a coffee break and you can talk to.
Yes. You can also mail me also if you have.
Sir, thank you. So if during the studies, was the transfer media factored in, and did it have any effect on the field distribution?
Transformer.
The transfer,
That
the
medium.
media. So what was it, sir? In this
We
case?
have only considered air. Again, there are also standard defining foreign object body present in between that. With foreign object body, if you have foreign object body, then what happens? Your basically coupling varies, and you can actually, there are many literature where they do FOD, that is called FOD, foreign object detection, using the change in the impedances what you get when the foreign object has come into picture. So it definitely, if there is some certain other media, the field distribution changes, all the parameters what we take will not hold true. So you have to design your system. Let's say if some foreign body comes over there, you have to either switch off your system, or if you can able to operate your system, you have to do that study to understand that.
Thank you.